This is a Valentine with a little bit of a history to it that I found interesting. It's likely from the 1860s. The dark frame of it was once silver, and you can see some of the pieces are still maintain that. We've got some floral pieces added up here. There's a little motto, "Dearest girl, thy heart's a pearl." A hand-cut and painted lady here kind of dancing inside a gold wreath. When I bought this, there was an envelope taped to the back with this newspaper article. This was this lady's mother, and this had belonged to her grandmother, hence framed a long time ago, and it hung on the wall in their house. So the owner tells the card's origin, okay? Mrs. Tracy E. Gibson. And this is a newspaper article dated from 1952, talking about this Valentine. The 1860s, 1870s was a time period of what collectors a lot of time call trick Valentines or hidden message Valentines. This particular one is an example. It says, "A week from my diary." And that would have been printed onto the booklet. We have a real feather down here, perforated lace paper. And the ink here underlining "my" and the exclamation points have been added by the sender. When you open it up, we have a pre-printed message about Monday. And then we have Tuesday. And we have Thursday, Wednesday, and the binding is a little bit loose on it. Interesting, as we get to the last page in the diary, Sunday, morning and evening prayer, blessings be upon my dear blank, blank, blank. So we're not quite sure who her dear beau was. This is another Valentine from the same time period, the 1870s. We've got gilding and a heavier lace paper. On the back, we have the same type of thing, but we have netting, and this is actually spun glass with a chromolithograph piece on the inside. It opens up, and there's a pre-printed motto inside, "Truly thine." But there's also a hidden message on the front, because this bouquet of flowers will split down the middle and reveal a picture of a young lady and a gentleman, possibly running off together, who knows. The interesting things about Valentines from this time period is I can just imagine this young lady saying, "Oh, look, Father, I got a Valentine from Fred." And Father saying, "Oh, what does it say?" Well, and she shows, lots of the things of "be my friend" and things like that. And multiple layers down, we're going to be looking at one that's got over 14 messages hidden in it. And, sometimes the one that's the deepest, hidden is the one that says, "I love you," which, of course, his father might not want to hear. This one is a church in gold lace. The church will come down, and we have a pastoral scene next. And it will lift up, and then we have a bouquet of flowers, and the bouquet of flowers will also open up, and we have a message on the inside about modesty. This one has an interesting Roman motif to it. Gold perforated paper, nice blue background. We have a Roman galley down here underneath, and a Roman couple here. The Roman couple will lift up, and we have a little bit of a book on the inside, Love and Friendship Forever. And if we turn that page, we have a motto. And if we turn this page, we have another message. This card is kind of the epitome of the work that was done by card makers and paper engineers in the 1870s. We have a lovely bouquet of flowers, and the card doesn't open up. So apparently there is no greeting for the young lady. But every one of these flowers will fold down with a series of pictures. And the series of pictures rotate around this, starting off with youth and getting married and having children, Christmases together, and then end up with old age together. So essentially, it's a picture book of youth going all the way around to old age being spent together, with each one of these pictures hidden behind each one of these flowers. There's another message hidden behind the whole bouquet called Love Choice. And there's one other trick. That's why they're sometimes called trick Valentines. And sometimes you have to be very careful with a 150-year-old Valentine. There we go. The whole thing spreads out, and there are little mottos on each of the stems of the flowers. Joy, long life, happiness, love, peace. These are the types of messages that are all there. And it becomes a little bit easier to see some of the pictures behind. And by pulling on the string very carefully, it all goes back together. The next section that we're going to look at on Valentines are ones that are called boxed Valentines. They're from the 1870s. This one's got a nice decorated box on the outside, Affection's Tribute. But the real beauty is when you open these up. And we see a couple of things. We have gilded, we have lace, we have chromolithographs. But you can also see that this is very three-dimensional. And that's done with paper ladders, or like a folded piece of paper that acts as a spring and causes the decorations to appear in layers and very three-dimensional. Most of these were made in England. And the colors are very bright. The condition is in excellent condition simply because the boxes themselves helped keep them in wonderful condition. This is an example of a box that's, a little worse for wear, but has protected the decoration that's on the inside. This one is for the elder Miss Cumley. The elder Miss Cumley. And we have the Valentine greeting on a card on the inside. And then the Valentine itself. Silver perforated paper. We have ribbons. We have feathers. We have millinery fabrics. We have chromolithographs. And we have a real, woven basket and moss and flowers. Sometimes this type of Valentine, because of everything that has on it, was called Choked to Death. So much stuff going on, so much different things that it was called a Choked to Death Valentine. This Valentine has a decorated box to it. We have gold, what we call Dresden paper decorations on the corners, and a young lady on the cover. The box opens up. We have a classical scene here. We have chromolithographs down here. We have perforated lace around the edges of the box in which the Valentine is inserted. This one is English made by a company called Windsor. One of the more prominent features, of course, is the butterfly up here. And then we have one other boxed Valentine. This one is a large one. These could be handed or these could be mailed. They were a little expensive to mail. This one has some addressing information on it, but no stamps on it. This one is the typical lace around the inside of the box. Chromolithograph here. This is called parchment paper. It's hand painted. This is a celluloid, an early type of celluloid plastic, again hand painted. Fabric lace around here, chromolithograph. We have the motto right here, which will lean forward and bring the whole piece forward. The other thing that's interesting about this, actually probably the most interesting thing about it, is the hankies, the handkerchiefs, given as a token of love. Within the Victorian time period, there was whole books written on what the use of the handkerchief signaled or symbolized to others. Just a couple of examples of it. Drawing your hanky through your hand says, I hate you. Drawing it across your cheek says that I love you. Drawing it directly across your eyes means that I'm sorry. Opposite corners in both hands mean do wait for me. And if you throw it over your shoulder, it says, follow me. We've looked at some very beautiful Valentines that had lace paper in it, perforations and chromolithographs. This particular section is going to give you an idea how these were put together. Whether they were made in England or made in Germany or made in the United States, they all pretty much started with the same process, which was to get lace paper. Lace paper like this could make a large Valentine, or you could cut individual wheels out of this. This could be cut up and used in a lot of different ways. These are chromolithograph hearts with mottos on them. This particular set of hearts is actually, the mottos are written actually in German. Most of the chromolithographs that we see on the Valentines were made in Germany and sold to Valentine producers. So here's kind of a collection of some of this perforated lace papers. This one's got Valentine, a butterfly and birds with messengers and things like that. We have a heart up here. We've seen this type on several of them before, heavily embossed paper with flowers on it. Same thing with this one, very elaborate. And you had room in here to create an image with chromolithographs or painted images. These three ladies, young girls, are interesting in the sense that you could create a totally different Valentine just by the chromolithograph that you chose to put in. You can see that the perforated paper, the lace paper, is all the same. This one has had some gilding added to the edge, and each one of them has a different chromolithograph of a young lady in it. These are frames again, that flowers or young ladies, paintings, whatever you wanted to put inside could be used with these different frames. I want to move on to the 1870s and the big business that came from England and Germany into the United States. And I have two examples of Valentines that were made by Esther Howland, who was an American entrepreneur in the Valentine business. She was born in Worcester, Massachusetts, and she graduated from Mount Holyoke College in 1847. As a graduation gift, she got a Valentine from an associate of her father's, and she had a lot of artistic skill, and she thought, wow, given the right materials, I could do these. Her father was a stationer, which meant that he imported fancy papers and sold them to people, for stationery, for making things just like this. So she had him order some papers, and she sat down and started to put together Valentines. One of her father's salesmen said, "Yeah, I'll take a few of these around, and we'll show them to people, and we'll see whether or not they sell." By the end of that season, she had $5,000. That's in 1847 money. $5,000 worth of orders for Valentines. Eventually, she's going to hire a lot of ladies to work on these Valentines using those materials that we just saw to create these lovely Valentines. Most of them, again, came out of England and then assembled in the United States. The simple cards, reasonably small, sold for about 5 cents, and others would go up as high as $25, it's recorded, and that would be a tremendous amount of money in the 1850s, 1860s, and 1870s. The particular one that we're looking at in this picture is one of our very early ones. This one appears to be from about 1855. The papers come out of England. They're from Mansell, and there's a letter behind it, an envelope, that is addressed to William P. Thompson. So again, this is one of those a little bit more unusual because it's from a lady to a gentleman. And William P. Thompson lived in Buffalo, New York. This one shows the perforated papers. And we know that this is a Esther Howland because it has the initials for the New England Valentine Company right there. And then this was its size. So this is embossed right into the paper. This group of Valentines is representative of one of Esther Howland's chief competitors. It's the Whitney Company, and George Whitney was an officer in the Civil War. When he came out of the Civil War, he joined with his brother in the stationery business and started to produce, interestingly enough, in the same town, Worcester, Massachusetts, as Miss Howland. And again, the same connections with a brother in the stationery business, which allowed him to import the fancy papers. You can tell a Whitney Valentine because they are marked with a red W on the back of the card. And this one still has its original envelope, and there's the W. The small number underneath, 3.5 in this particular case, indicates the size of that particular Valentine. But you can see what we were talking about earlier about the gilded papers, the fancy papers, all assembled by hand by workers, usually ladies, in the Worcester, Massachusetts area. The other one that I think is, interesting to me is that we have a stamped envelope. This one is 1883, And Miss Mary Amstutz, Orrville, Ohio, Wayne County. That's all it took. No zip code, no street number, no street address. That's all it took to get this out to this young lady. So eventually, George Whitney buys out 10 of his competitors in the United States, and also including Esther Howland. So he is essentially the Valentine King, or the father of Valentines, as he's sometimes referred to. The company had a drastic fire in 1910, which they recovered from, rebuilt, and got Valentines out for the following year. And his company, not him personally, but his company continued to produce cards into the 1942 when they closed. And some of the later ones from the 20s and 30s actually have Whitney, the name, embossed onto them.